Welcome to the LowCarbMD podcast. No one is beyond help. No one is beyond hope.
As we have always said, we are bringing you medical information and cutting-edge science, but none of this is medical advice. Please seek out input from your own doctor.
Hello and welcome back to the LowCarbMD podcast. Tro, today we got a cool guy. We have a real patient, a real smart person who's really done this stuff, like a real testimony.
Real person, real author, amazing guy. This is going to be fun, guys. Okay, today we have Kevin Vandoorne. You may have seen him on Twitter as Keto Sustainable. Okay, he's written a book on Amazon called Fat Boy No More. We know each other well, and he's been a longtime listener of the podcast. We're happy to share his story. He lost 100 plus pounds, or at least near 100 pounds, I believe. And it's been about 4 years that he's kept it off. So literally, we're talking to a Super Bowl winner in the weight loss field. And I can't wait to continue to hear parts of his story. So excited about this.
Kevin, welcome. Right. Tell us your story.
Looking forward to talking to you. Well, hey, it's great to be here, guys. First of all, thanks again for taking the time to talk. And I've had dealings with Dr. Tro over the last year and a half. He's been my primary care doctor as well. So that's been great.
Yeah, he knows a little bit about this stuff.
He does. And one of the reason he is my primary care doctor was because I kept having doctors leave. Matter of fact, I got fired by my rheumatologist because I wouldn't, not the rheumatologist itself, but the care system fired me because I wouldn't stay on the medications that they wanted me to be on because I didn't need them anymore, right? So Dr. Tro kind of backfilled some of that and made it so I had a good primary care doctor that I could bounce my philosophy off of and not have to face the vegan doctors that I was having to face with at the time. So.
Yeah, that's a hard thing for a lot of people. It's hard because the doctors, we're not used to taking people off meds and stopping stuff. We're very good at adding one and then saying, oh, there's a side effect from that one. Let's add another one. Let's add another one. And then when people get their health right, they say, well, you can't stop your blood pressure. Well, my blood pressure is normal. Well, you can't stop your sugar. My sugar is normal. Like, why should I take this? And so actually it can be very dangerous. People don't realize, Mark Cucuzella, who is a friend of mine, we co-author, well, not co-author. He was the main author and I was one of the contributors to how do we taper medicines? How do we not add things? So patients like you are very unusual to the system and we don't know how to handle you because we're not used to it.
Right. Yeah. And so that's kind of what my story was about too, was the fact that, it wasn't just the weight that I've been dealing with for, many decades, right? As far as being morbidly obese, et cetera. It was the side effects that came along with it as well, with the autoimmune. I was diagnosed with ankylosing spondylitis and rheumatoid arthritis, had all sorts of psoriasis, arthritis issues going on at the same time that were probably more detriment than the actual weight itself. They were more of the side effect of that long-term hyperinsulinemia, right? And along the way, I realized that, my biggest problem was that I was a binge eater, right? I was a binge eating disorder, right? I was kept relying on food to be that vehicle that would make me feel better, right? And so I had to address those psychological issues, right, within my brain that was causing me to reach out for food. And over the years, I was a vegetarian for 3 years. My wife and I were distance runners. So it's not like we weren't trying to lose the weight and improve our health. And even going after my blood sugar, I was trying to improve my diabetes by, physical activity and not eating that dangerous meat and saturated fat thing, because that's what everybody was recommending. So it wasn't trying. It was just at some point, via my brother's experience with the low carb diet, he lost a lot of weight and was able to keep it off. That kind of, sparked, well, it's working for him. I've tried the move more, eat less thing, every single paradigm you can think of in that way, whether it be Weight Watchers or running or vegetarianism. And they all had, short term. I was an Olympic medalist at losing 60 pounds and then gaining 80. Right? It's just that.
Yeah,
that
that's
type
a
of
common.
thing always.
It's a common thing. And then people say, well, you don't have willpower. A guy who's running long distance and you're eating a vegan diet, you're trying all these things. You say, what works for me? And it's frustrating because, when you go to the doctor, they think, well, you're not sticking with it. You can't be, because if you were, you'd be healthy like me, basically, right? That's kind of the mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So take me back a little bit, Kevin. Like as a kid, was weight always an issue? Was that like a family trait, or was it something that developed over time?
Well, it was one of those things. My broken home. My brothers and everything were all much older than I was, so I was almost like an only child stuck at home in front of the TV, and so I developed a dependence on ultra processed food at a very early age, and became a slave to that essentially. So that was my introduction to food. I was basically alone as a kid in the house with nothing but a bunch of food to eat, and so I became very dependent on ultra processed food as a kid, and fought weight gain my entire life. I think, as a kid, I would get active and would lose it. And then I would, played football and I lost a bunch of weight. And then I went in the military and I worked in the engine room. It was about 140 degrees. So it's pretty easy to keep the weight off there. But when I got out of the military, it immediately came back. And I went from, 180 pounds to almost 300 pounds. All right. So as I said, in the military, I was working in an engine room at 140 degrees. It was pretty easy to keep the weight off because I was so, it was so hot. I was sweating all the time.
You were in a constant sauna.
Yeah. I mean, it was, and also very long hours. I mean, we worked 18 hours a day too, right? So long hours, not much sleep, and a lot of work to do. So it was easier to keep the weight off. So when I got out of the military, the weight ballooned pretty quickly. So, and again, I had no correlation between what I was, the types of food I was eating and the weight gain. All I knew is, I was hungry all the time, right? And that was my biggest thing. I was always hungry. I was thinking about food from the moment I woke up to the time I went to bed, and I would even maybe wake up in the middle of the night and eat some more. And that, that is to me, that cycle that is just inescapable for a binge eater.
Do you think anxiety and depression played a role in this, or was that not really a factor? Was it more that you enjoyed the food?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, definitely. I talk a lot in the book. I paint the picture of a kind of a difficult childhood and how that impacted anxiety and depression and all of that too. So it absolutely played a part. And even to this day, I fight some. Right? I mean, it's not 100% gone, but it's much better.
So how did you make the change? What made you say, okay, this low carb keto, changing your lifestyle? Where did you hit rock bottom somewhere? Yeah. And you developed all kinds of autoimmune stuff and diabetes, all this. And like, where did you finally say, okay, I got to make a change?
Right. So, like I said, I've been trying to make those changes all along, right? By, doing the distance running and changing my diet to a vegetarian diet, which, after several attempts of part-time success and then ultimate failure, in July of 2018, I met with my primary care doctor at that time, and she's like, "Hey, we really need to talk about your blood glucose. I mean, you were already on metformin, but I'm thinking that we need to go ahead and add insulin to your daily lifestyle." And I said, "Look, I just don't want to do that. I mean, if I can do anything but that, injecting myself, I'm already injecting myself, weekly with Humira and methotrexate, right? I didn't want to inject myself even more, right? So that was the line in the sand there. As I said, I've toyed with low carb for a while, but that's when on the August 1st of 2018 was when we made the commitment. Okay, here we're going to go full bore and, keto at that time, ketogenic diet at that time. And we started documenting everything we did. And we'd already been doing that, right, with other ways. We'd already tracked our calories on MyFitnessPal and all our running, activity, et cetera. So it wasn't like we were totally not used to that. But instead of tracking calories, we tracked carbs. And did that for about 2 months. And it was working. I lost about 40 pounds. And I can't say it wasn't working. It was working very well. But it was still kind of a chore, right, to track those calories. Or not calories, but carbs and everything you eat. And then I ran across a video by Dr. Eric Westman, where he talked about his protocol, which is, less than 20 carbs a day total. Eat meat and vegetable, non-starchy vegetables until you're full, and then don't eat when you're hungry. And so it's like, oh, wait a minute, I can do that. I can eat until I'm full and then don't eat when I'm not hungry. And what changes there is you're not thinking about food all the time. You're not thinking about your next meal. You're saying, hey, I eating until I'm satiated. I'm eating animal proteins for the most part. And next thing I know, it would be 8-12 hours before I was hungry again. And that is pretty much the game changer. That's what is revolutionary for me, is the fact that now I wasn't trying to work on recipes to try to replicate those comfort foods that I used to eat. Now it's just fill up on meat, fill up on a steak, fill up on ground beef and bacon, eggs, and then just wait, and then until you're hungry again. And as simple as that sounds, that became what was successful for me.
Yeah, and that's it's so counterproductive. A lot of us have thought, all of us who struggle with weight, they go, you have to use willpower. You're just weak mentally. You're not doing what you need to do. And then when you start eating that way, you go, now I'm not a slave to food anymore, because you're not getting these sugar spikes up and down, and you even out and you drop your insulin level down. I'm sure no one checked it back then, but you're having someone like Dr. Westman. It doesn't have to be complicated. You could say, okay, just get rid of all this processed stuff and eat real food. And then we see, because if I tell you on day one, hey, we're going to get you time restricted eating, you're gonna wait 12 hours not to eat, you couldn't physically do it. That's what Tro and I have been really pushing, is like, and as people's physiology changes, then what you do changes, and what you're eating and what you would desire to eat changes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is, I gave myself a break. Sometimes you give yourself permission to fail and give yourself permission to succeed, right? So one of the things my wife and I did was we started not calling things cheats, right? We was calling things indulgences, right? So if we wanted to have a low carb dessert once a week, well, we planned it out. Thursdays and Sundays became those days, right? Where we could look forward to, a special, which she makes a great low carb shortcake, the strawberry. It's great. And that's one of the other things, less is more, right? You have something less often, when you do have it, you enjoy it that much more. So,
yeah, it tastes sweeter and tastes better when you don't have it every single day.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Tro, we might even let you ask a question, man.
No, I mean, I probably missed a lot of it. I know the struggles you had and the kind of the place you were in, lifetime, we call it binge eating. It has not a lot of names. Some people call it, temptation. Other people call it, quote unquote, lack of willpower. Some people call it food addiction. I think it's a lot of we're talking about the same thing. It's kind of like the 8 blind men touching the elephant. Is that the right? And I know your struggles, and you outlined them so well. And I know you probably talked about that turning point, right? What kind of really, turned you on to things. I'm just wondering, can you walk through some of the hardships you had along the way? I know the last 4 years weren't perfectly easy, right? So, and right. I know that I know that there's been a lot of, probably things you've learned about yourself along the way. Can you talk about some of the hardships? Because I know you faced a lot of adversity. I'm not sure if you guys went into that yet.
No, but, that's the thing. I mean, even there were times that, I would always turn to food when things got rough. I mean, that's just the way things were. But even this last 2 months, right? My stepsister, she died from not COVID, but from a remdesivir.
I'm sorry to hear that.
For early, they tried to treat her early for COVID, and then within 2 hours, she had massive organ failure. That kind of, it set me back. I kind of got off Twitter for about a month because it was like,
I'm sorry to hear that. I'm really sorry to hear that. Mm-hmm. We've heard a lot about kidney and liver injury from remdesivir, which is now, by the way, approved in the outpatient setting. I don't know, Brian, if you saw that.
Yeah, I'm actually stunned. Yeah, some things I just can't answer for, and
you can't get monoclonal antibodies.
Yeah,
and this is not a statement about the medical profession and COVID and all that. It's just something we went through, right? And so
I'm so sorry. I'm really sorry. I'm sorry for your loss.
Not trying to hijack that.
Yeah, I'm sorry for your loss.
No, I lost a friend to the same. I lost a friend to the same, and it's really frustrating. It's really, and and those things are the ones that are going to set us back to when you're going through, emotional turmoil, frustration, anger at the system, whatever it is. All those things, we find comfort in food.
Yeah. Yeah, and so and I didn't, right? So that's the other thing. I mean, almost 4 years now, been weight stable. During COVID, I lost my job and got another job, and all those type of things that would normally, be triggers that would send me over the edge. It didn't. It didn't happen. I'm not saying that I've had zero instances of weight gain, because I've gained 10 pounds. But what's nice, I know how to change it. I just pretty much go carnivore for a couple of weeks, pulls it back down, and that type of thing. So I know exactly how to deal with it when I start seeing myself getting off track. And so that's the big takeaway there, is how to solve the problem. It's not just knowledge of what's wrong, but actually being able to execute and resolve that.
Can you walk me through getting off track over the past 4 years? What is, a lot of people talk about this, and what did it look like for you? You found low carb. I know you lost your weight pretty quickly, right? And then your diabetes, all your medical issues. Did you talk about those kind of resolving?
No, I didn't, didn't, and that's a really good point, because to me the weight loss is nice, but the no longer needing to take Humira, methotrexate, 17 NSAIDs a day, insulin, metformin, etc., is a much bigger takeaway for me than losing 100 pounds, because that all happened actually, and most of that happened before the weight loss occurred. Right? So my A1C dropped from 9 something to 5.2 within a couple of weeks, right? And I wrote about the story about my ankylosing spondylitis experience, was the fact that over a few years I'd had to get off Humira because of insurance would lapse or whatever, and I would have these huge spikes in pain and be in terrible shape. Well, in this case, it's kind of a weird story, because in late 2018 I had a really bad respiratory infection, and one of the side effects that can happen with Humira is these respiratory infections. And so I just asked my doctors, hey, can I just get off it for a while, that and methotrexate, and then we'll regroup and see if there's something else I can take, because I'm not really liking these side effects. 6 months later, I still wasn't on Humira or methotrexate or any autoimmune medicine, and I was feeling fantastic, right? And then I went and got the x-rays done and all the scans done I needed, and nothing had gotten worse, nothing had progressed. And I'd been having progression and things getting worse for 15 years, and all of a sudden the progression stopped. So when you talk about things, weight loss is really cool, but no longer having ankylosing spondylitis keeping me up all hours of the night is much better.
That's remarkable. That's remarkable. And the thing is, we so much focus on weight. This is where, with weight loss stuff, people are so focused on that. It's we're looking at metabolic health, insulin. I've seen people gain weight, but they're metabolically healthy. They come off all their diet because they're putting muscle mass on and they're getting healthier. And people like you, it's by the way, you're the second person I talked to today that came off huge medications for autoimmune disease by lifestyle change, right? Mr. Solozo is a guy I follow on Twitter. He has his story is unbelievable. If I didn't hear him say it and go through his story with him, I wouldn't believe it. It's your story is unbelievable. People out there who are on all these meds, once you're on them, you don't come off it. It just doesn't happen. And so when we see that, we say, wow, I remember just laughing at these chiropractors saying, well, we're going to get you off your diabetes meds. I'm like, guess what? They're crazy. And then when you start realizing they're having success at doing it, we have to start looking at it. So I'm very intrigued by your story about, especially when you make the point that your autoimmune stuff, your diabetes, all this got better before you lost significant weight. And that is really something, because it's probable, as Tro will attest, is that you were losing visceral fat around the organs, around your liver. and you're probably putting on some intra-abdominal muscle mass at the same time. So it kind of was a balancing act, and you metabolically get that much healthier and you come off autoimmune medications.
Yeah. Well, you know, and you get rid of the non-fatty, you know, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and things like that. I mean, you're only improving your metabolic health along the way. You know, interesting too is about a month ago, my daughter, you know, who I've been pleading with, you know, please, you know, fix your diet, please. She ended up going to the hospital with pancreatitis, you know, pretty severe. You know, what was really concerning is, you know, she was pretty heavy and she lost significant amount of weight without dieting, which tends, I guess it's more about the pancreatitis than that. But I don't know how I didn't get it. I mean, I had every other thing related to, you know, metabolic syndrome. Didn't get the pancreatitis, and watching her go through that was pretty awful.
You know, I just find it very interesting. It's like we didn't even have the data. We knew it. We had the clinical expertise from Atkins, who said your joint pain will get better, from Westman, who said your joint pain will get better, from what me and Brian saw. But then, you know, we're going to have the scientist on who's going to talk about the studies they did. They literally did interventional studies, right? Looking at low carb versus low fat. And they've shown that it reduces chronic pain, osteoarthritis. I mean, it's kind of amazing. And here you are. Somebody could have figured this out just listening to you, right? Just listening to you, they could have figured it out. But now we have the studies to back that up.
Well,
I'm just
not
curious.
only that,
you know, are your doctors curious?
Well,
like
his doctors fired him. His doctors fired him, Tro.
Right.
You get yourself healthier and they fire you. Go, this is crazy. You're not taking our medicines. You're too dangerous. Like, I feel fine. All my symptoms are better. Why should I take the medicine? It just doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, my doctor was taken over by, you know, the Seventh-day Adventist group here in Florida, and that's actually how, you know, you and I hooked up, Tro, because I basically lost my primary care doctor, who was also my rheumatologist, and was looking for somebody else. And you know, it's really a pain to look for another doctor that will meet with you, we'll discuss with you philosophically, without, you know, hey, you're going to die because of all your saturated fat intake.
Yeah, I think that's a huge problem. I think most people, and I know, Brian, you probably see this, and maybe you could talk about this, Kevin. You know, there's a huge one, there's skepticism, people coming, you know, a little concerned that their doctor's not giving them enough time, right? Not listening to them and their personal issues, right? Not treating them with respect, not respecting their autonomy. I mean, I haven't been able to do all that, uphold all those values in 7 minutes. Brian, have you been able to do that?
You cannot do it. It's impossible. Cannot be done. You can't have 7 minutes, especially when you have metabolically, like, you know, if Kevin came to me, like, I'm going to try to manage his rheumatoid arthritis, all of his stuff. He's going to have a ton of healthcare problems. So, like, talking about how's the marriage, you don't have time. What are you going to do? Talk about that for 12 seconds. And the problem is doctors can't go there because now they're judged on efficiency. So if I can see 30 patients quickly, then I'm more valued by the system. If I help you get off your auto, because I mean, it's staggering how much your meds that you came off, just coming off those meds, how much money the system saved on you being interested in your own health. So you would think, like, for me, Tro, this guy I just interviewed this morning, he was on a drug that was $65,000 an infusion, right? The insurance was paying a lot less than that, but $65,000 every 8 weeks. Now for 2 years, he's off his meds completely. And so he wants to talk about this. And then on his support group for this drug, he was told, you're no longer allowed here because you can't talk about that. A guy who reverses disease process. This is like mind blowing to me. It's just amazing. Like, you wouldn't say, hey, let's try it. If this is working, if I'm a doctor, I don't care, you know, if you're getting better. We don't get kickbacks on prescribing drugs, right, Tro?
Look, I think the huge thing here is, not one pharma dollar, right? Not one, right? No pharma dollars ever in me, by the way, just to be clear about that. And we don't even, we have allowed 2 pharma reps to come in. One was Abbott to bring us freestyles, okay, the Libre, the CGMs. And there's one pharmaceutical rep we've allowed in, and they are not allowed to bring anything into the office but what we ask, which is either a medication that's very expensive that some of our patients benefit from, right? And they're not allowed to bring not a pen, nothing. We take nothing, right? So yeah, it's hard. I think it's hard. I think, Brian, our profession lacks curiosity, and that's clear. Like Kevin, your story, you know, you're fired from a doctor's office. You can't get a hold of them. When you call your doctor, you probably get a call center in another country, right? And you're just to a point where you need help. And the sad thing is you know, I think it's somewhat sad, Brian. Like it's sad about our profession. It just says like we have not paid attention to the people we're serving. We've been serving insurance
the enemy.
We've been
a problem.
Yeah,
because there's too many, and you're overwhelmed. And I know, because doctors are listening now, and they know I'm telling them the truth. You're overwhelmed. I can go back to 2 years ago. I was working 16-hour days. So do you think I had intellectual curiosity after working a 16-hour day to go read something? I was just trying to keep my CMEs up. I was tortured by studying for the boards and trying to do all this stuff for stuff I'm never going to see most of the time. And if I do see it, I'll look it up online and figure it out in 3 minutes, like memorizing. And so we've lost the ability to say, oh my gosh, how can I help that patient? But I'll tell you, Tro, since you wrote me into this direct primary care, I'm reading more than ever. I'm looking at stuff going, wow, I'm really intrigued by this. I wonder why I never thought about gut health or microbiome or how does these autoimmune disease, how does diet affect these things? But people are saying the drug is the cure. Let's give you the drug. And then I look at, I'm like, how much Remicade are they using in sub-Saharan Africa? How many of these drugs are they using there? They're not. They're not. Why not? So these are the things we start looking at as we lose our intellectual curiosity because we're beaten down. I mean, the big epidemic that's coming, watch. You can mark me on this. Our podcast, by the way, when we look back, has aged very well on what we stood for and what we've seen. The suicide rate among doctors is going to go crazy. And because doctors are frustrated, upset, they're not happy, they're in a bad system, they're another cog in the wheel, and they're overwhelmed by sick people that they came here to help, and now they're not helping them. And so that's when I was getting burned out. I realized I wasn't effective. I knew our podcast was helping more people than I was in the exam room. So when you start realizing, gosh darn it, now I'm just seeing, oh, you're only seeing 35 patients a day, I'm seeing 42. I'm a better doctor than you. That's the mindset that we got into, and we're in big trouble until we change that.
Yeah.
What's it been like on your end? So you're trying to find doctors and you know, COVID hits. Like, what has it been like keeping this low carb lifestyle going into its third year, into its fourth year? You know, did you face any other adversity, any other challenges?
Well, I mean, as far as, you know, it's nice. I've had my wife with me the whole time, right? We did this together, right? So when we do our shopping, we shop together. You know, it's actually been, from that perspective, it's pretty easy because we don't have competing needs, right? We have the same goal in mind. So we don't have like she's trying to do low fat and I'm trying to do low carb. We're doing the same thing. And to be honest, we've always done that, right? When we were vegetarians, we tried that together. Although she liked her meat more. And I feel really bad because I would berate her a little bit, say, hey, honey, we need to stay away from that meat. But she has thyroid issue, right? And so she has special needs and needs for salt and things like that I don't have. And so, you know, we would be on different things there. But now with the low carb, ketogenic, total carbohydrate reduction, whatever you want to call it, we've been on the same page. And because we feel so much better, you know, for one thing, she's got lupus and, you know, she's feeling much, much better as a result. It's a little bit more difficult to show numerically how much better she's doing, but she is feeling a lot better. And so if we stray, that's one of the things that's kind of interesting. Like if she strays, she's got also IBS. So if she eats corn or rice or something like that, she has an immediate payback. It immediately tells her, you messed up, right? And so that's one of those things that help as well, right? So once you're able to know what things feel like, and you cross that line, and you hear what your body's saying, you've gotten used to hearing that, it makes it a lot easier to stay on track.
That's true. Well, you have instant feedback when you know. So, you know, even talking to, you know, you and other people, like it's normal to feel terrible. Like at some point, you know, it's just, that's just the way it is. But then once you start making changes and you feel great, you're like, I don't want to go back there to feeling terrible again. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can't even tell you which specific thing it is. I know I can tell you what my theories are. That ultra processed food with that high sugar and high fat combination and really highly palatable made me eat a lot more of that. And I can't say that it's potatoes or anything like that. I'm leaning more to the thing. It's that ultra processed food that was the poison that was causing us to feel awful.
Hold on. Yeah. I'm fairly sure you can say it was the potatoes. So can we talk about potatoes for a little bit? Can I do like a little monologue here? Because let me tell you the story on potatoes. Everybody gives potatoes a break because some study from 1988 gave people boiled nasty potatoes and said, how much can you eat? And they said, we can't eat much. We're full off of half a potato. So they gave that potato a very high satiety index, right? Okay. So what does that mean, right? What does satiety mean in that particular instance? They hated what they were eating. That's what satiety means. Okay.
Yeah, liver gives me instant satiety, man.
What's that?
I love liver.
Liver gives me instant satiety.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not hungry.
Raw beef fat gives me instant satiety. Like if I drink olive oil, I'm instantly full. You know, I don't want any more. I can't eat any more of that, right? So the problem is everybody says this potato is the most satiating food. I'm not saying it's not satiating, right? No. I'm saying is, you know, well, look at the most addictive foods that we know, right? What is number 4, number 5? French fries and potato chips. What's the main ingredient there? Does anybody know? It's potato, right? It just happens to come with some oil and some fat, right? So now how much of that fat and that oil and that salt can you eat? Does anybody sit there and chug soybean oil and put some salt in their mouth and they're like, I got to keep going for more? Nobody does that, right? So the fat just enhances the reward of that potato. And if you look, there's a drug we use to help people with appetite. I'm sure Brian's heard of it. It's called Wegovy or Saxenda or whatever it's called, right? Ozempic. It goes by a lot of names, right? Trulicity. Okay, look, every drug has got its place, but what does that drug do? It agonizes GLP, which is a hormone, right? GLP, it's a receptor, right? It's when it's activated, it makes you full. Makes you full. And when you take just fat, by the way, just if you ate pure fat, lard or oil or whatever, you'd get a ton of GLP because fat and protein enhance that agonist response. If you add potatoes, that GLP response is gone. Right. Meaning that, so yes, it is part of that food reward that you're talking about. You're like, yes, this, you know, I know it. Carbs and fat hit that sweet spot in the brain, right? But it actually, adding the carbs to that fat disrupts the satiety hormones. So you know what? I think the potato has been misunderstood for a long time. I'm not saying don't eat it. You know,
and I agree. I'm not here defending potatoes. I'm just saying that once in a while, if I want to have a part of a baked potato with my meal, it's such a low percentage of my intake. Yeah, it's not a big deal, right?
Correct. Yeah, totally. I think we all are in agreement on that for sure.
Yeah. And now you know to be cautious. Yeah, and now you know to be cautious. Wait a second. I'm eating this potato. I'm adding it to fat. Like now you're attuned. Like I know what it does. This is what McDonald's has been abusing for 50 years. This is going to make people eat more. You know?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, we know that. We have data on that, like cutting out. The study they did with basically a double hamburger, either wrapped in lettuce or you have it with the fries, Coke, and French fries. The people had it with the whole meal were hungrier faster than the people who just had it wrapped in lettuce. Like we know that. I mean that's a given, and that's exactly goes back to what you're talking about, Tro.
A year and a half. That's exactly what I ate 5 days a week. Right. I go to McDonald's, get the 2 double cheeseburgers with no bun, and I continued losing weight and was not hungry for many hours after the fact, doing that for a year and a half. So yes.
You know what? Yeah. Can I just say something? We got to call McDonald's up and we got to get you a sponsor for your book. You know, just say, I went to McDonald's 5 days a week and I lost 100 pounds. You know what? And can I just say something?
Why would you have McDonald's when you can have like, oh, you guys don't have In-N-Out Burger. That's why.
Yeah, we don't have.
We don't. We have Five Guys.
Five Guys. That's good too. Yeah.
But I mean, it goes to show, Brian, I'm sure I actually tell my patients, hey, you can go to McDonald's, Wendy's, Burger King. You can get 4 hamburger patties for $4 in any one of those places, right? You can put some pickles on it. You can put a little lettuce. You can put a little tomato. Those vegetables will make your cardiologist happy. And you got a pound of meat for like $5. It's like a invaluable resource.
Yeah, and Kevin cheated the system too, though, Tro, because his wife is on board, right? So we know, number one, cause of failure is stress. Number two, lack of social support, family support. So when you're doing it together, that is a magic. That's magic, especially when you're not stressed out and tense and fighting because she's eating stuff you can't eat. And, you know, a lot of people don't realize the social stuff. That's why when certain people, I won't mention the names, but they're studying rats in a cage, and they give it so much slop here and slop there. And they go, look, this proves it. Well, it doesn't prove it because they're not having their stepsister die unexpectedly. And they're not going through life stress, and they're not going through family marital problems. Most mice that I know, I talk to a lot of them.
Sounds like a PhD Jim Bro thing. Is that right?
What was that?
Sounds like a PhD Jim Bro or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So you go, look, real life, but that's what you're showing too, is you've had sustained success for a long time. Very few people can maintain weight loss this long. And then also going back and forth a little bit and still saying, like what you're saying, I love it. What I love is people like you who say this, like saying, hey, if I gain 10 pounds, I know the formula to get it off. I know what to do. Sometimes I get a little lazy or life gets in the way or I'm traveling or whatever, or Christmas comes. But, you know, I have a guy who's a multimillionaire. I said, what would you do if you lost all your money? He said, I'll make it back again. Right? Other people lose their money and they kill themselves. But you say, I know the formula, I know hard work, and I know how to do certain things. I know where the need is. And so once you understand, like, oh, I know what works for me. I just have to, I hear it all the time. Just a lady I just saw last night with autoimmune disease also. She did keto in 2016, lost 40 pounds. She was doing great, but then just went off the wagon and never got back on. Now she says, I need help getting back on. I know it works for me. And I've tried every other thing in between and nothing worked like that. I've never lost weight like that. But she went off the way. So now how do we get you back on? How do we stay on track? You know, those kind of things. That's why your story is so important of how do you stay on track for 4 years, right? That's pretty amazing.
Right. And no intention of doing otherwise, because I don't want to go back to what I was before. That's a pretty awful existence, to be sleeping 2 to 3 hours a night and in a lot of pain. Oh, I didn't even mention the tooth pain. when I got off sugar, right, I was in terrible mouth pain all the time, in zero now, right? So that alone, it was like some almost suicidal pain, mouth pain that is gone. And people say, well, sugar is a lot bad. You're overrating. I'm like, if all I had to do is just judge it on tooth pain, sugar sucks.
That's pretty amazing. And the funny thing is, Tro, I feel like a snake oil salesman. I really do. When I don't even want to talk about some of the stuff, like the mood stuff, the energy stuff, the focus. I have a lady I just saw. She had chronic left shoulder pain, and she was a grumpy person all the time. Her and her husband are joining me, my practice, direct primary care. But she was saying that she had left shoulder pain that would not go away. They got MRI. She did physical therapy, all this stuff. She goes carnivore basically, and all of her pain goes away. And she goes, look, she's like so happy. And her husband said, not only that, she's nice to be around now. She's fun and we laugh. She said before she was always just waiting for me to say, like, it's like Twitter people, right? She was waiting for him to say one little wrong thing and then she would attack him. And he said, I'm looking at her all the time thinking, how can she be so nice to me now? It's amazing how much it affects your brain.
Pain will do it. I mean, there's no doubt it impacts your relationship with other people, because you're always on edge. Right? I'm not saying that I was an angry person, but I'm sure that it definitely impacts relationships.
And that sleep deprivation is so critical too. You mentioned that you're up at night to sleep. When your sleep quality improves, your sweet cravings go down, your food cravings go down, your intake goes down just without you even doing anything. You will diet. If you get 1 to 2 hours more sleep a day, you'll diet without even trying. Right? Without even trying, without even thinking about food, you'll drop about 300 calories a day on average. Right? So I think, when we talk about all calories are the same and all diets are the same, well, actually there was a certain type of calories that led to a decrease in your pain and inflammation. And those calories helped you sleep, right? And those particular calories helped you eat less calories, right? So this idea of, and this idea of calorie tracking, it's just, I think the problem is it's not a realistic measure for most people. Can I ask you another question? How did you manage your cravings? I mean, you wrote about this, about your, kind of the issues that face like the junk food cravings, right? How do you manage the junk food cravings? Like it's been 2 years, you've been locked up, holidays, this, that. What do you do? How do you manage those situations? A lot of people want to hear, like, how does people get, like, what do you do when you crave pizza?
Well, we make pizza, right? You make the fathead dough pizza and you eat it, right? That's how we deal with pizza. Or, if you're in a hurt and you can't make the fathead dough pizza, well, Quest pizza is not 100%, keto or whatever, but it's a heck of a lot better option than eating the full fat, high calorie pizza than, or the other thing is, that's what she said, we'll just make cheese and meat and eat the pizza toppings and have that feeling of pizza. But she also is a great cook, right? So she will experiment and make some of the keto desserts as we need it. But my favorite hack is a hamburger patty. So and that's what I used early in it, right? So we used to be the big nighttime dessert guy, right? So what we did is we bought a big thing from Walmart, big frozen hamburger patties. I'd throw 2 of those on the fire, cook them up, salt and pepper, make it smell really good, and enjoyed that experience at night. And that became my late night dessert. And it worked, right? So it got me through that sweet craving.
And dropped your insulin level down. The guy you all scored away. Troy, I hate to admit this, but my wife's been making Rosette's pizza. She's been using your dough, and it's been really good. And then we'll have that, or we'll make sausage crust pizza at the same time. We have one or the other, switch off for a little while. But man, it's really good to have that option. It's something that you could just make really quick and, have friends over and they enjoy it. And, it's pretty cool. I mean, I hate to admit it, Tro, but, it does come in handy having that, or having, and I was just thinking about that hamburger patties. I don't do that very often. So that's kind of a cool idea too, to get satiety and fill up.
You want to hear something real quick? I went to Burger King recently, right? And I roll up, and first of all, the pimply faced, squeaky talking guy who took my order, was so flabbergasted when I said I wanted 8 hamburger patties. And he's like, what? Like, first of all, he's like, that's $20. I'm like, no. The low carb menu, no buns, 8 hamburger patties. He's like, okay, I'll talk to the manager. Anyway, they finally figured it out. They charged me $8. Okay, I'm like, great. And then, after him fumbling around and, he looks at me and this is what he says. He goes, what are you feeding the dog? That's what he said. What are you feeding the dog? So I've used that hack. I love that hack. And everybody listening, remember, they're going to look at you funny. They're going to, make faces at you. They're going to say nasty things. They're going to try to charge you more money. But no, any one of those places costs $8. And you can get 1 to 2 pounds of meat for really, really cheap. Brian, you never done that?
Nope.
No? Oh my God.
I have a barbecue, man. I just throw my stuff on the barbecue, grill it up, and I'm good to go.
What do you do if you're
How busy are you, dude?
You're busy.
Well, my kids are older, so I got time. So I actually have a secret chef at home. I call my wife and go, honey, can you get the barbecue all ready? Like, let's do this. I'll come home. We'll cook. We do steaks. We do a lot. It's just so easy to do at home. It's so much. I mean, you can get really good quality steaks and cook them up and you're good to go.
Well, the other thing is the sous vide is great too, right? It doesn't even have to be top quality steak, and it still comes out really nice.
Yeah, or
right?
Instant Pot, right? You can do Instant Pot, you can do a lot of stuff. I mean, with roasts and all that kind of stuff, and have it for the week type thing. And yeah,
we've done it. We've loaded up the sous vide and run it 24/7, 7 days a week for a couple of weeks at times, and just go get out what we want when we want it. And that's just seems so easy, but that's what we do. And that makes it, how do you deal with hunger? Well, okay, their food's ready when I want it. And by the way, I'm not going to be hungry for 12 hours anyway, so no big deal.
So I know you've been highly motivated to kind of keep on track but what about, like, have you ever had a near miss or like a almost, or you kind of dipped your toe in, or not really?
I'll tell you, one of my biggest temptations is tortillas. I grew up in Southern California, right? So that's one thing we will do occasionally. We will get some corn tortillas and maybe make it a taco. And we can see that weight, pow, bump right back up, right? So, but they're so delicious, right? And so, yeah, it is hard to do that. But at least if I do gain a couple pounds, I know how to get it back up, right? It's okay. We'll just tighten back up and we're good. But I will say another thing. There's another, and this is kind of a weird hack, but it's not settling for pretty good, right? So if I want pizza, for example, or if I want a certain cheesecake or something, I don't want some middle of the road Domino's pizza or something like that. If we're going to do it, there's a pizza. Was a place here in Tampa called CDB's. I think they recently closed down, but that's like the best pizza I've ever had. Right? So if I want pizza, and I'm going to get the best. And so sometimes that in itself will just okay, well, I'll just wait until I get the good stuff, right? And so it makes you put off in that mind. But when I am going to eat pizza, it's going to be the best pizza, not just some okay pizza. And for like a birthday or something, if we're doing a cheesecake, we've got Publix down here, and a lot of times they'll have a no sugar added cheesecake, which is fantastic. But I do count that as an indulgence, right? And so it's planned, right? So it's for a birthday or whatever. But planning those indulgences seems to help too, and then not settling for just, because I used to do that, right? When we go get the Hostess out of the vending machine, to get that fix, which is great for right then, but 15 seconds later you're hungry again. So just to make sure that if you are going to indulge, seriously indulge, don't just settle for blah.
Yeah, and be okay with that. And you're not a terrible person if you indulge every now and again, right? So it's one of those things of, people go and then they're off the wagon for a month instead of saying, hey, and some people can't. Some people can. That's one thing we've talked about a lot. It just depends on the individual.
So one of the things that you've brought up and Brian's brought up, I think, is this concept of resiliency. I mean, you talked about, I'm not going to let it be the end all be all of me. You're not self-judging. You're like, look, this is my lifestyle. This is what I do. And you get back to it. If you do indulge or you do decide to have that special pizza or whatever it is, you are back right on it, right away. And Brian hinted at another thing that was kind of similar. Brian was talking about, that millionaire, that person who has a non-quitting spirit. If they lose all the money, he asked them, what do they say? They said they would just make it back again, right? So that there's a resiliency that I think both of you guys have talked about, and I want to put a word on it. It's tenacity and it's resiliency. If you struggle, find out what happened, look at it, evaluate it, and figure out how to grow and keep going. If you're looking at something, don't view it as a moral failure. Just figure out what you can do better next time. And that small, sustained, resilient, tenacious approach, right? Self-forgiveness is so important, right? For that, right? If you did a moral failure and you failed everything and now you're a terrible person, well, what's the next logical step? It's like, I might as well keep going, right? So you have to be careful of the trap of that all or none thinking, and the trap of the addictive, tempted process, because it's going to use your logic, emotions against you. And what I hear you saying, Kevin, and what Brian was also mentioning, is that resilience is so key, right? This is
I agree. That resilience is important, but I have to also remember that before I did low carb, I lost 60 pounds at least 4 times, right? But I wasn't able to maintain it, wasn't able to sustain it. And so I kept trying, I kept succeeding, and then it would come back. The one difference of this is it maintained, right? And so that is key in my mind. It's not just about, I can do it again. I don't want to go back, right? And so that's my motivation for not, falling off track very far, right? So keep the scale in the bathroom, check it pretty doggone often. Same thing with the blood sugar. Got to keep an eye on that, right? I mean, because as Dr. Westman talks about, there is carb creep, right? You don't necessarily see it coming up there, but you got to keep an eye on it because you don't want to be where you were 4 years ago.
Yeah, I think that's another quick thing for people who have been for people who've struggled with weight loss and have intense hunger, like I'll tell you, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back to always being hungry. Like I will do anything in my power to not be hungry. I mean, I will make a dessert that fits my lifestyle if I need it, right? I'll stick to real food as much as I can. I will do anything to keep my hunger in check, because when I'm hungry, it just becomes 10 times harder. I got a million things going on. I don't need that. Right. So this is the beauty of kind of that low carb approach. It decreases hunger, it increases satiety. Now you still need that resilience. You still need the desire to make a change. But I think most people have that. And you had that. You exemplified that. 4 times you lost 60 pounds. Right. You wanted to get better.
And when you break free, there's the change. Like people like feel free. They go, gosh, I'm not hungry every 2 hours now. I'm not starving all the time. If I have to skip lunch, no big deal. I can eat dinner tonight when I get home. Like it's not a huge emotional drain, because I know, like in my old work, that I would hear the medical assistants all the time go, okay, what are we gonna have for our snack today? What's our lunch? What's our dinner? What are we gonna have for an afternoon snack? And it was like their whole day was revolved around what they were eating the whole time. And you go, wow, that's a tough. Like for me, I was like, I'll fast till dinner tonight. It's not a big deal. Right. Like, and it's amazing when you hear how much of an impact and time consumption and being sick all the time because you're eating terrible food. Like people don't realize the implications of what happens.
Yeah, I can think of miserable, losing sleep, right? I mean, look at your life, losing sleep, being in pain all the time, right? These are things you don't factor in, and you're just like, I'm just eating. But like that's our job, Brian, is to educate people. Right.
Well, just to be able to sleep at night and not be in pain and not be miserable. If you're in pain all night, you don't sleep well, then you're going to be hungry the next day all day because you haven't slept the night before. And then you break that cycle and you get your inflammation down, you get your gut microbiome right. All these things are a factor, stress levels, because if you're in pain all the time, you don't want to deal with people. It's hurting. You're hurting. I don't want to be, when you're sick, no one's in a good mood. They want to be like, leave me alone. Let me go, just sit in the room by myself and sulk. But, it's one of those, and just Kevin, just the fact that you're off all these other medications sustained for this time, you go, wow, not to have to be on medications all the time and shooting stuff and taking stuff and, stuff that can have side effects. And, it is just, it's amazing. It's really amazing.
I can think of another example of that, being able to fast. Because back in December, I had a little outpatient thing going on, right? So I had to fast overnight, and a room full of people, right? All you heard was, I'm so hungry. When is this going to happen? Because I haven't eaten since midnight, right? That type of thing. And I actually commented on that Twitter, and people got mad at me like, oh, you're not being, kind to those people. But I'm like, no, that used to be me. Really. I totally get where they're coming from. And the fact that I'm not one of those anymore, I'm just celebrating, but people didn't take it that way. But that's just how I feel. It's like, it's actually kind of a sad statement of our society that, not eating for 6 hours is torture. Right?
Well, it's funny. It's funny at the lab here, Tro, when people, like my patients will go in at, noon or 1 o'clock or 2, and they'll say, oh, you're not fasting. Oh, no, I'm fasting. Are you Dr. Lenskis's patient? Because they know, like, no one else is doing that, right, in town here. So they'll go, oh, you must be one of his patients, right? Like you can fast till 2 and you're not dead. Like it's amazing to people. Like the phlebotomists, they're amazed. They don't believe the patient.
I think that's such a critical thing, and that's something that you can't measure, right? Like, how does it feel, right? How does it feel to be, what does it feel like? And I think one of the things I'm hearing from you is 1, not only the resilience that you had, 2, the family support, 3, you had these immediate health impacts that you were able to appreciate. And 4, you had a lifelong desire to make change. Right. And these things came together and you heard the right message, the right time. And it sounds like it just all clicked. It's nice to hear stories like this. And not only that, but you faced adversity. Your doctors fired you. Nobody, wanted to support you. I know Brian probably hears this every day because I hear it every single day.
I love those patients because their doctor fired them for taking control of their health. And I'm like, I'll take you. Are you kidding me? You've already done all the work. You know what you're doing. You're an easy one for me for direct, right, Tro? Our direct primary care patients, I'm like, oh my gosh, I love you because you're never going to come in, right? You're healthy now. You're good. But if I don't fix the problem, if we don't get to the root cause and we just keep throwing drugs, I have to see you all the time.
Actually, we do like to talk. We do like just to talk.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what's great. I have my patients come in, they want to come in to show me, look, I'm off this medicine. Look, I'm happy. My joints don't hurt anymore. And it's fun. This is a fun visit because I don't want to come in and say, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, I got a headache and my knees hurt, I can't walk, I can't, those kind of patients wear me out. But the ones who go, oh my gosh, guess what? I walked 5 times in the last 2 weeks. I didn't walk at all before that. Oh my gosh, that's great. This is good. Look at you getting stronger and things are getting better. It's like I always say, it's like a country song backwards when people start feeling better and they're happy and they're like, they'll come in and go, hey, I just want to see how's life. What are you doing? I just want to come visit with you type thing. I'm like, this is great. This is fun. You get to visit with friends all day. You get paid to do it. I'll take it.
And let me say something else, with Tro, when I took the difference, and I think this is be helpful. So my one little thing is I do have a little bit of stubborn blood pressure, right? That's the one thing that's going on. And Tro dug in deep, right? So, okay, well, let's see what's going on here. He ran a bunch of tests, checked out my kidneys, and did all these other things that, maybe you're just salt sensitive. And maybe I am a little bit, I don't know, even that's inconsistent, right? Sometimes my blood pressure is perfect for a week and it'll bounce up. But anyway, the amount of research and looking he did into it, it's going to matter. It turns out that my problem might have been I had kidney stones and bladder stones, right? Which have been resolved, and I feel a lot better, obviously. So a lot of those things, that CT scan he had me do, boom, we may have resolved that issue that was not so easy to find. But if you're having to chase symptoms all over the place, when do you have time to do that?
Yeah, you have to look at it. You have to look for it.
I think also you have to just listen, right? So like we went through your story, you had lost, like any good doctor should say, wait a second, I have somebody here whose blood pressure was stubborn, but he lost 100 pounds. Right? Like that should raise, right? Like technically every 3 pounds should see 1 millimeter of mercury go down, right? So we just have to be curious, ask questions. Why is that happening? Right? Are the arteries stiff? Is there a, kidney stone? Is there, a kidney issue, intrinsic kidney issue? Is there a issue with stress hormones or sleep apnea? I mean, there's so many secondary hypertension causes, right? But we have to start to think, well, wait a second, we should have, like, it's not just to say, oh, you have blood pressure. And that may be, you may just have high blood pressure and that's,
Could be idiopathic. Right? Could be.
Yeah, exactly. Idiopathic is doctor, I don't know. It's a fancy way of doctor saying, I don't know. Right. And that could be the case.
But you have to resolve all the other things to say, is it the high insulin? No, your insulin's normal. Is it this? Is it that? Is it this medication?
No.
And then you start, ferreting things out. Then you can narrow it down and go, okay, it's just like a mechanic working on the car. If certain things you go, no, this isn't from the battery. This is something different. It starts fine and then it's not running right. So you have to look and figure out, as long as it takes time, but until we stop looking, I think most of the time it's not idiopathic anymore. That just means the idiot's not looking in the right place for it.
There you go. Bingo. Kevin, can I talk a little bit about kind of our process or no?
Sure.
Okay. So one of the things is you'll see like, well, okay, we'll send you a cuff, right? We'll send you a cuff that links up. We'll do some tests. We'll see 1 week off of salt to see if that helps you or not, right? We will, send you an ambulatory blood pressure monitor. Maybe it's just episodically elevated. Maybe it's, elevated at night. Maybe
white coat hypertension.
Right? Maybe you have sleep apnea, right? So, I mean, just so you know, this is all done completely remotely. Like ship ABP cuff, an ambulatory blood pressure cuff, get it back, review it, get a remote monitored cuff, do a sleep study, I mean, these are just simple things you can get done with a 15-minute conversation. But somehow in medicine, we've complicated so much, like come see me, come back. And it's like, no, I can do all this in like minutes. Like all I need is to know who you are and know, right? And then I can create a plan of action and then slowly work through that plan of action. And I can make it easy for you, and
then you take out all these other variables like, weight and blood pressure. I mean, all these other variables that you say, okay, let's try to fix those things. And once we get one thing fixed after another, you say, well, you lost 100 pounds and that's not fixing the problem. We got to look and see if there's something else going on. Right. So
100%, being curious and spending that time. I think that's,
but if you have 7 minutes, again, you're not that curious anymore. You got 7 minutes. You can't fix all this stuff. You go, okay, here you go. Here's your prescription. We'll see you next time. That's what's happened.
Yeah. But here's the problem. The copays have gotten so high. It's like, you might as well, it's almost, there's no reason. as a doctor to stay in this model of insurance.
There's no way for a patient to stay in the model. When you look at it, you go, well, what am I doing? I'm telling you, I just had this conversation with two patients. Like, they have an HMO. I go, you never see them. Change to this type of insurance and it'll be better off for you. You'll save money. You'll save that much money every month because you're not using the resources they're charging you for. It's ridiculous, right? As a small business owner. I mean, so, when you realize like how much am I paying in copays, how much am I paying for, and you start looking at the cost, you go, wow, this is pretty crazy. I mean, it's pretty amazing how, and plus you're not getting good healthcare. You're getting sicker and you're on tons of meds that are costing you more. But we're paying Tro to be my doctor. I mean, it's ridiculous. We're taking people on more medicines. Their copay on the medicines more than what they're paying you a month. Right. And you're there at their beck and call when they need you. It's just amazing to me. Like, it's just amazing, the system.
Yeah. So I have a high deductible plan, right? And so last year I could actually see how much I spent. And Tro actually, his office worked with, when I had the CT scan done, the calcium score done, all those type of things. He helped negotiate those prices down so it's a cash paying, wasn't having to pay so much out of pocket for a lot of those things. The blood work was still, oh my gosh, that was still very expensive. But if you think about what I would normally have been paying for medicines, et cetera, it definitely is, it's a good balance.
Yeah, if you go with one like Ulta or something where, stuff that would cost $600 is like $80. It's ridiculous how much money we can save just, and negotiating like Tro's doing with the radiology people. And I have dermatologists go, hey, what would you charge my patient cash pay to come in for a, biopsy or to do stuff and not go through insurance? And more doctors are getting it. And they're like, yeah, I don't want to deal with the hassles of insurance anyway. So I'll see cash pay patients and charge them a reasonable rate. And if you're gouging people, we don't send you patients. Can't do it.
I think one of the big things is also this system of insurance, right? What they do is the radiology company sees that the insurance is on board. So the radiology says, I'm going to charge 50% more and then walk back that 50% in their negotiations. So the price becomes ridiculously inflated, right? And the insurance company is just passing off that cost. So that same test that we got you for, I don't know, 100, 150 bucks, it costs about 800 to 1,200 bucks, right? Through insurance. So this is the crazy model that we're in, right? It doesn't work. Labs will only discount the price if I discount my price, right? So that's the way we get them. We discount our price. We say, here, our patients can't afford that. And then we, some of the labs, we've signed deals with them that they'll reduce their rates because their cash prices are still astronomical. A pretty good metabolic panel that's comprehensive costs about $4,000 at the cash price. The Medicaid price is like $500, right? But so we get them to come closer. I think we can get them to pretty close, to that price through negotiations. But it's a challenge, right? It's a challenge. Anyway,
that's a lot of work for your office to have to do, right? Because you're not just
we figure it out,
right? This is a good thing. I'm saying that you're here to try to treat patients, but you're also your office is having to spend a lot of time negotiating with the labs, et cetera.
But it's a long-term game. It's a long-term game for us, right? Because we see the value and we see a future value. We got to do this work anyway. Somebody's got to do it. Otherwise the system's going to go bankrupt, right?
And then the new doctors start and we go, hey, look, we give them the same pricing you're giving us. And we kind of help that way because more doctors are going to leave the system. There's no doubt about it. With what we're seeing now, it's not sustainable. But the problem is, as more doctors leave the system and you have those same amount of patients in the system, they're going to have terrible care. Like the good doctors are going to leave because they go, wait a minute, this is a crazy system. So that's what's happening. There's an exodus of doctors right now. Then what? Then what happens? Like at some point, there's going to be a because the reality, here's the reality, the honesty of medicine is that doctors are in the driver's seat. They just don't know it. They just don't know how to get together and say, guys, we're not going to take these rates anymore. We're just not going to do it. We won't take your healthcare insurance. So once if you're a healthcare insurance plan who's gouging the doctors, then all of a sudden all the doctors say, whatever company X, we're not going to take any of your patients anymore. And then what's the insurance going to do when they go, we don't have any doctors to send you to, right? At some point, that's where it's going. As they keep, at some point, the doctors have to say, this isn't worth it anymore, guys. We can't take. Trust me, I've been at one of the big insurers was paying us like 60% of what Medicare paid me, and that was terrible. I was like, what are we doing here? Why are we working? Like you can't survive at that rate. You can't provide patient care, or you could be a mill and see, you know, one patient every 3 minutes and maybe break even. But, you know, you just can't, it's just terrible medicine. You can't survive at that rate. So, you know, and that's why we're seeing patients, like in my old system, to get someone into the cardiologist through the HMO plan would take like a month, 3 weeks, a month. Like, no one wants to say, you have Pancreatitis, you don't wait 3 weeks or a month. Now I call someone and go, hey, can you get this guy in today or tomorrow? Yeah, no problem. We'll see him today at lunch. Okay, thanks.
Wow.
It's crazy because, because they're overwhelmed by the system. The system is overwhelming. There's too many sick people and not enough doctors. So that's my spiel.
I think
I got to go see a patient actually, but
that's right. Let's wrap it up, you know, Brian, because Kevin Vandoorne, the author of an amazing book. You can get it on Amazon. Say it again to me. Help me out, Kevin, again.
Fat Boy No More.
Fat Boy No More.
I'm gonna read that one. Yeah.
The story of his binge eating and everything we're talking about here, and you can see the key elements here. You know, he had family support, he had conviction, health issues that improved, and he had resilience and tenacity, and he kept going. Kevin, thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing. And, you know, guys, go to Amazon and buy his book. Brian.
Actually, let me read you the subtext too, because it's Fat Boy No More, How I Conquered Binge Eating and Lost Weight Without Counting Calories, because that is as important as the main time.
Yeah, it's really good.
I love
stuff,
it.
Man.
Right up my
Awesome
alley.
stuff.
Love it. Right up my alley.
I'm going to go buy
Thank you so
buy
much.
some hamburgers, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you got some tips here.
Yeah, good stuff.
Thank you. We're going to have to head out and cut it early today.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Hey, thank you so much. Thanks for joining us.